All right, tomorrow night we finally get to see Jake Paul taking on Anderson Silva, in which will be, hot take, Jake Paul's first ever real fight. Yes, I'm sorry, I said that. If you're a Jake Paul fan, that's just the situation. You know, the basketballer, Nate Robinson, Ben Askren, yeah, he was a fighter, but he was a wrestler. Tyron Woodley, he was a wrestler. He had a mean overhand right. He was never a boxer. They were all tailor-made matchups, but now finally Jake Paul is going up against a real fighter with real skill and one of the greatest mixed martial artists that ever lived. Anderson Silva became the champion in his second UFC fight and went on an absolute tear. The creativity of his striking, the knockout power, the reflexes, the timing, everything that he had. That is why he went on and defended a UFC title more times than anyone else in the history of the organization. But let's be honest, people get older. Father Time is undefeated. Anderson Silva is 47 years old, but he's still got it. Since he left the UFC, I think he lost 5 or 6 in a row, sadly. Last time he was in the UFC, he got knocked out against Uriah Hall, but then since then made the switch to boxing. Went to a decision victory over Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and then knocked out the Huntington Beach bad boy, Tito Ortiz, in one punch. Tito Ortiz came out through a wild, long combination. Anderson just covered up like the experienced, savvy, calm, cool, collected pro that he is. Waited for Tito to punch himself out, stepped off, boom, one shot, put Tito to sleep. Now listen, Tito Ortiz had a long career as well, and he's not the youngest guy ever. But Tito Ortiz was always able to take a shot. And that's one thing about Anderson Silva. The man can punch. He has power. Now granted, he's a Thai boxer, the art of the 8 limbs. Punches, kicks, knees, elbows. This is just boxing. 2 limbs, but still, I'm telling you, the man can pop, the man can bang, the man can probably knock out Jake Paul. Now, coming into this one, Jake Paul, 6'1", Anderson Silva, 6'2". Both of them identical reaches at 76 inches. Reach is always a big factor, certainly in boxing. But when you look at Jake Paul, here's Jake Paul, listen, this is the formula, right, that he likes to do. He takes mixed martial artists, guys that aren't boxers, okay, guys that are past their sell-by date, guys that are past their prime, guys that are retired, cherry picks them because they have a name, and then he beats them and gets that little bit of stardom, he gets that little bit of rub, that thrill. Everyone thinks he's legit, okay, certainly, hey, listen, fair play. When he knocked out Tyron Woodley, fair play. That was a sensational right hand. And all this talk of, you know, the fight being fixed, absolute utter nonsense. I don't believe Tyron Woodley would do that, and I don't think Jake Paul would want that either. If I'm being honest, I think he's actually out there really fighting these guys. So Jake's young, he's hungry, he's doing good. You know, he's improving. When you see Jake Paul on the pads, he looks good. He looks sharp. He looks fast, and of course we know he has the power. Nate Robinson, Ben Askren, and Tyron Woodley all got face planted and hit the canvas face first. You know, regardless of who you are. That's hard to do. All right, this weekend, Jake Paul puts his undefeated boxing record on the line, going up against one of mixed martial arts all-time greats in Anderson the Spider Silva. Now, today's video is sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook, and DraftKings are giving new customers an absolutely sensational deal. This Saturday, new customers sign up using the promo code Bisping. All you got to do is bet $5 on either fighter to win, and if that fighter wins, you will then be given an additional $200 in free bets, as I say, if your bet wins. Now, Jake Paul undefeated. Last time we saw him, knocked out Tyron Woodley. Anderson Silva, since quitting the UFC, he has moved on and had 2 very impressive boxing performances. Last time knocking out Tito Ortiz, the Huntington Beach bad boy, in just 1 shot. So it's an intriguing fight, but if you want to put your money where your mouth is, right now, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code Bisping. All you're going to do, as I say, bet $5 on either fighter to win, and you will get $200 in free bets if your fighter wins. That is code Bisping this Saturday at DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, coming into this fight, leading up to it, there was a bit of a controversy. Anderson Silva said, leading into this one, that he was knocked out twice in training. So the Arizona State Athletic Commission had to look into this one. There was reports that potentially the fight was going to get pulled. So then Anderson said, no. He said, there's a misunderstanding. English isn't my first language. What I meant was I was knocked down in training, not knocked out. And I call bullshit on the entire thing. I'm not saying Anderson was knocked down. I'm not saying Anderson was knocked out. I don't think he was knocked down or knocked out. What he's doing, and this is Anderson Silva all over, he is the master of mind games. He is lulling Jake Paul into a false sense of security. He is saying to Jake, oh, look, I'm 47, I've been sparring for this one. Oh, I got knocked out twice. So Jake goes out there, takes it easy, and Anderson Silva just unleashes all hell on the man. That's what he does. Anderson is a smooth, crafty, experienced operator. He has urban cat-like reflexes, the instincts that he has, the power, the speed. Listen, when you look at Jake Paul this week, when he showed up at the open workouts, yes, riding a horse, on a horseback, fair play. Jake knows how to make an entrance. He looked good. He looked sharp. And, you know, he had the robots following behind him. The Jake Paul circus was in full effect. And listen, that's what Jake brings to the table. He's a great promoter. He's a good boxer. He's doing well. He's picking off opponents that he knows he can beat or thinks that he can beat. And he puts on a show, you know, so God bless him. But I think this is going to backfire against Anderson Silva. I think, I mean, there was footage of them both dancing away, playing nice, you know, they're all there, they're spinning around, they're dancing away. Oh, we're having fun, we're being friends. See, this is what Anderson does. You know, sometimes in the UFC, he would get dropped, he would drop his opponents and then he would help them up. You know, I remember against, when I fought him, I dropped him at the end of the first round and he came up to give me a hug. And what he was doing there, he was saying to me, oh, look at you managed to land a glove on the great Anderson Silva. Come here, give me a hug. It's just condescension. He's just taking the piss. He is mocking people, okay? But that's okay because we're fighting and that's what you're allowed to do. This controls everything. The mind is the most valuable weapon. And Anderson knows that and he has done this throughout the entirety of his career. So, he wasn't knocked down. Why would he say knocked down instead of knocked out? All right, you might say, because English isn't his first language. Well, yeah, but why would you say you got knocked down anyway? What purpose does that serve to tell your opponent that you were knocked down? Okay, and certainly if you were knocked out, then rightly, the Athletic Commission should step in. But he wasn't knocked down. He wasn't knocked out. He was messing with Jake. Just like the way he was messing with Jake when they were dancing together and they were all playing nice. I think that Jake, when he squared up against Anderson, he's realised he's bigger, he's taller, he's longer, he's more experienced, he's been in these big fight fields. I mean, the events that Anderson Silva has fought on, this is nothing, okay? Now granted, if Anderson Silva loses to Jake Paul, then of course that will affect his legacy. But his legacy's already been affected because he's stuck around combat sports too long. Okay, now there is a real possibility that Jake can connect. Jake, you know, for the most part, you know, he's a decent boxer. He's improving every time we see him, right? But he is a little tentative, okay? And while, yes, he looks good on the pads, and I'm sure he looks decent in the sparring, what you do on the pads, it takes time to cross over to sparring. What you do in sparring takes a while to cross over to a real fight, when there's real emotions, when you've got real fear, nerves, adrenaline, butterflies in your stomach. Anderson Silva's not at that phase. Anderson Silva's been there, done it, got the t-shirt many, many times, broken every record under the goddamn sun, and probably still going to break more records because that's what's the kind of guy that we're dealing with here. So, how do I think it's going to go? Well, I think Anderson is slicker. I think he has the better reflexes. He has the better movement. He has the better head movement. I will say Jake potentially has bigger power. Jake has bigger power. But I don't think he's as experienced. He's not as fearless as Anderson. Now, Anderson's not a fool, but he's very comfortable in there. And the more comfortable you get and the more you relax, then the more fun you have. And then you start jigging and jiving. You start having fun. You start using the feints. You start throwing your opponents off and you start mocking them, having fun. So I think that's going to be a big difference here. I really do. So, official prediction, Jake Paul loses in spectacular fashion. Jake Paul gets knocked out cold by Anderson Silva. And if I'm wrong, then I will swallow these words. And I will congratulate Jake Paul all day long because he deserves it. Whether or not Anderson Silva's 47 years old, he has beaten Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He did knock out Tito Ortiz. And the man is still an absolute legend. And some things just never die. So if Jake does it, God bless you. I'm wrong. You were right. You beat Anderson Silva. But I don't think that's going to happen. I believe Anderson Silva goes out there, plays with his food for a little bit, plays those psychological mind games, puts on a little bit of a show, and then boom, closes the show with a sensational knockout, and the problem child is face down on the canvas. Anyway, there you go. What do you think? Maybe I'm biased because I fought Anderson Silva back in the day. Maybe I'm biased because he's such a legend and he holds such a special place in my heart, and he really does. He inspired me for so many years. So maybe I'm biased, but I do believe that. What do you think? Who do you think wins the fight? Let me know down there in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed and rung the bell, then come on. What are you waiting for?